Hi everyone, it's James from the CCX Update. I wanted to bring you a short video today, really as part of my interview preparation series, on something that's really crucial and comes up a lot, which is your why moment. Some customers that I work with will literally in an interview say, and what is it about our business that makes you want to work for us specifically? Others will do it in more subtle ways, but it always comes through. Hirers want to know why you want to work for their company in particular. It's not an arrogance thing or an overconfidence thing. It's simply that they want to know what matters to you about what you understand of their business. So what I've done is, in this video, broken it down into 4 columns, 4 areas that I think you can find your why moment within. And then I'm going to give you 5 tips at the end for researching your why moment and crafting that into something that you can then use in the interview whenever it comes up, however it comes up, and maybe one thing you wouldn't expect as well. So stay tuned at the end for that. Okay, so column number 1 under my 4 columns of where you might find your why moment for a business is people and culture. So we're thinking about the business and the culture that it has with its employees, with its customers. Has it won certain awards? Has it been certified for certain actions like a B Corp or something like that? Does it support certain charities through events that people take part in or sponsorship of events and things like that? So does it seem to matter to the leadership within the business and that align with how you're feeling? And then, of course, that also ties into the mission, the values of the business. If you can find those quite easily, do they align with the way that you feel about the sector that they work in, or just really how you conduct your professional life? But that's certainly where a lot of people can find their why moment, is in that people and culture area. So do make sure you do your research in that space. So column number 2 is output or product. So are you looking to work for a company because you use their product or you're a fan of what they produce? That's obviously a pretty straightforward way to find a company that you might want to work for. I often think about this with influencers who work with brands. That's kind of what they're doing. They're picking and choosing the brands they want to work with because they're a fan of what they do. What about the projects that they're working on as well? Have they won particular clients that you'd be interested in working with? Have they just publicised they've won a massive piece of work and you'd really like to be involved with that? Or indeed the sector and the clients they work with as well. Do they work within public sector? So it might be SLED in North America, or public sector in the UK and Europe, looking education or healthcare. Does that align with your mission and values? I know that through the years I've spoken to people that don't want to work in certain sectors. But could the flip side be true, and could that be where you find your why moment? Column number 3, referrals. You know someone that's worked for the business or does work at the business or knows someone that works at the business. Really what we're talking about there is a direct referral or reputation. That can be your why moment. I've heard great things. Let's face it, if we're picking a restaurant to eat out in, the chances are other people's opinions that have eaten there have an influence on whether or not we go there. So reference and reputation is just as important and can be your why moment. And of course, it's a little bit less common than some of the others, so it can really make you stand out if that is the case, and it is worth considering. And the 4th column that I want to talk about, and this applies more so to some roles than others, certainly on-site roles, and this is practical. So is it the location of work that makes it attractive to you? Is it the work from home or flexibility that makes it attractive to you? The number of days per week, number of hours per day, the shift patterns, things like that, practical considerations. I'm not really talking about salary here, although we've all got responsibilities, bills to pay, and therefore salary is a practical consideration, but salary should never be your why moment. But certainly there are things that can make one role stand out to you versus another, and it absolutely could boil down to the things that matter to you in your life, and that's where those practical responsibilities can help craft your why moment. Now, looking back over the rest of those columns, it might well be that your why moment is actually made up out of elements of all of those, and that's fantastic. But what I'm going to do now is talk about my kind of 5 tips for researching your why moment so that you can craft something that can be really useful to you in that interview scenario. So tip number 1, research channels. Typically, people will jump straight on the website. That's great. It's deliberately a source of information, and you absolutely should do that. But don't just do that. Use multiple channels. LinkedIn pages are great as a social media channel. Companies tend to update those a little bit more freely and easily, and the content sometimes can lean more towards people and culture as well. So thinking back to the 4 columns I spoke about, if that's where your why moment's probably going to lie, LinkedIn is great for you. Again, Facebook, X, Instagram, check if companies have pages there. If they do, look at all of those as well. So check multiple channels. Do they have podcasts and things like that as well? YouTube, of course. Hi, YouTube. The other key thing with that research is be precise, right? Sometimes I've seen in interview scenarios, people think they've done their research, but have misunderstood something they've read, or have done it very quickly, or perhaps even looked at something that was out of date or from a company that had a similar name but wasn't quite right. And what they're presenting in terms of their why moment is imprecise. There's nothing worse than having not done your research and not being able to answer this question, rather than answering it with something that clearly shows you've done a rushed half job. So research multiple channels to find out information about the company, and then make sure it's accurate. Be precise. Tip number 2, it's got to be genuine. It's got to connect with you personally. So if I'm preparing candidates for interview on a one-on-one basis over the phone, I'll always say, do your research and find what resonates to you. It's got to be real. As a recruiter, I can't tell you what resonates with you. It will come across as false, and there won't be any substance behind it should it turn into a conversation, which it very well might do. If you're being interviewed by somebody and you say, oh, I love the fact you're involved in this charity as a business, and that's that person's doing, they're going to open up and want to talk about it. So if you don't really care, it's going to come across really quickly, and I guarantee you that'll sink that ship. So it's got to connect with you personally. And if you're struggling to find something that connects with you personally, keep digging, or else it might be relevant to the next point I'm going to come to. Point number 3, be ready to walk away. Look, if you're doing your research and through the research you start to think, actually, the exact opposite has happened. This company does not align with who I am as a person. I didn't know that to start with, but now I almost certainly do. This is an opportunity before the interview where you can say, actually, for this reason, I'm not going to attend. I'm no longer interested. It is still feedback for hirers that maybe they need to understand. And it's real. If it's connected with you personally to that degree, you absolutely should be ready to walk away from that opportunity. And that can only be done through, again, going back to my first tip, good quality, in-depth, precise research. But tip number 3, be ready to walk away if the role doesn't align with you. First tip, good quality, in-depth, precise research. But tip number 3, be ready to walk away if the role doesn't align with you. Number 5, use the work you've done. So we might be talking about this, and it's perfectly possible that in your interview, the interviewer doesn't seem to ask anything that alludes to why their company. Maybe they're just having an off day. Maybe they haven't prepped properly for the interview. Maybe they just feel they already know the answer. But if you've done this research, you've done that work, and what you've come up with is a sentence or two that really explains what matters to you, do use it. So if you get to the end of the interview and they say, okay, well, just finally, do you have any last thoughts? You can still say, look, I just want to say at this point, one of the things that really appealed to me about working here is this. Make sure you do use it, because it can be the thing that makes the difference. Just because an interviewer hasn't asked a question doesn't mean they don't care about it, but it might be that they've already made a decision, good or bad. If it's good and you're offering some more positive feedback, it can only really help. If it's bad, maybe this swings things in your way again and perhaps restarts that conversation. And also, I think there's nothing worse than if you've put the time and energy into researching something and you don't get the opportunity to use it. I know this from countless people over the years that really thought they had something that was going to be a magic moment to use in the interview, and they just didn't get a chance to do it because it's busy, there's a lot going on, you're focused on the task at hand, And before you know it, it's over. You've ripped that band-aid off and then you go, oh, I didn't get a chance to say this. But do try and keep it present in your mind to explain to them your why moment and why working for their company really is different to you. Okay, tip number 5, the last one. It's kind of a tip, but it's also probably the most important thing. Sometimes you just need a job. And I've dealt with candidates over the years who, when I've been through this kind of preparation with them, as I do with all candidates that I deal with, they've said, to be honest, I just need a job. I'm interviewing for 4 or 5 jobs. They're broadly the same. Seems like a good company. I don't really mind. Now, that might be the core truth. And going back to the second tip I gave you about it connecting with you personally, if that is the truth, it is your truth. But we still need to try and find something that stands out to you about this company and this role. It cannot solely lie on, well, I just need a job. Maybe you're in a difficult situation, you've been laid off or made redundant, you've got bills to pay, I just need to start work. That's why I need to get this job. Because I guarantee you, every time that has been conveyed in an interview, in my experience, it has not gone down well. Or you would think, well, they want someone that's motivated to come in and work for money. They do, but hirers are also thinking long term. And long term is about connecting the company and you on some level. So you've got to show something. If you're finding yourself having done your research, getting to the end of it and saying, well, at the end of the day, I just need a job, so that's going to have to be enough. It isn't. Go back, look at the research again, try something new, try something different. Have you looked at all the channels? Ask people. So I've looked, I'm trying to find information on a company and I've done all these things. Can you think of anything I haven't done? Ask, your partner, your friends, your family. Ask anybody, because anyone can have a great idea and they don't need to know anything about the company or indeed recruitment. They could just think of something that's different from you. Go and look at that. And even if it's a small thing that just makes you feel slightly differently about the job, a little bit more excited, hold on to that and then use that as your reason. Okay, so in summary, the why you want to work for a company is so important. It will come up in every interview, whether directly or indirectly. Every hirer, in my experience, cares about it, and it can be a real differential between two candidates. Ones that don't demonstrate a specific desire to work for this hirer and this business, and ones that do. The challenge is the same, whether it's big companies or small, but you certainly within startups will feel this a lot more keenly, where founders, CEOs, MDs are almost looking for partners as well as employees. Within big businesses, if there's a big corporate culture where everyone wears the badge and the underpants and they're fully bought in, again, it can be a really strong thing. It's not with every business, but it can be really, really polarizing between one candidate and another. So it's critical that you get this right and spend some time on it. What it boils down to, though, as I think I mentioned earlier, is a couple of sentences, really just summarizing how you feel about this role in this company and why it's different to you in a positive manner, why you'd rather work here than any other company at this moment. Now, of course, the reality is if you're interviewing with 3 or 4 companies and you're doing this for all of them, you've got a why moment for each of them. And there might even be a tier system of them, but you've at least got that information for each of them, something that stands out to them. It shows you've done the research and it shows you care. And because it connects with you personally, it's real. So then the chances are if they offer you that job, it should connect back to that reason. And you should think, yeah, this has fulfilled my why. I'm really excited about this now. And of course, as a recruiter, really the ideal situation is any applicant getting a couple of job offers from 2 companies that they really want to work for, and then having a kind of nice, difficult decision to make and having to choose between the 2. And that probably comes down then to your why and tiering those and thinking about, okay, well, what one is actually more important to me? And pro tip there, practical does tend to play a big part. So do think about that in terms of those 4 columns that I mentioned at the start of the video. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it useful, please like it, please comment below and subscribe to the channel. This is part of, as I say, my interview preparation series. We're going to be building out all of the things that I ask candidates, thousands and thousands of candidates that I've dealt with over my career, to do before they go and interview with my clients. And my candidates really do have a very high success rate with customers, partly because they prepare really thoroughly for interviews. So if you found this useful, Do like the video and comment below any questions, any thoughts, any feedback, and subscribe to the channel. This is part of my interview preparation series that I'll be sharing with all of you, and indeed the candidates that interview on behalf of me with clients as well. So if you subscribe to the channel, you'll see all the stages and all the preparation that I think you should go through before you interview for that dream job for you. Thanks very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.